Oui, bonjour. Bonjour à tout le monde. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April meeting of the Council. Bienvenue au meeting d'avril du conseil. On va commencer notre session aujourd'hui avec un moment de silence, s'il vous plaît. Merci. On va commencer avec l'ouverture de la réunion. J'ai besoin d'un proposeur d'adoption de l'ordre du jour.
Je propose. Je seconde.
Avec les ajustements.
Madame Bilodeau, est-ce qu'on a des retraits?
Me répéter les noms, s'il vous plaît, j'ai pas proposé.
Une modification.
Oui, secondaire. OK, merci. Oui, alors, Monsieur le maire, il y a plusieurs retraits à l'ordre du jour ce soir. Donc, les items 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 4.11 et 8.2 sont retirés de l'agenda. So, following items are moved from the agenda. 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 4.11, and 8.2 are moved from the agenda.
Merci, thank you. On va commencer avec la période des questions et de réception de requêtes. Regarde, on va les lire. On n'a pas grand monde avec nous ce soir, donc on va les lire en ordre qu'on les a reçus aujourd'hui. La question numéro 1 est de Mme Mariani. Est-ce que quelqu'un veut répondre à la question?
I'll read it and then answer the question. I want to look at the camera this time. So the first question comes from Laura Mariani, who lives at 266 Avenue Lagasse. The question reads, the city currently spends $380,000 on recycling services. According to a study commissioned by the Ville de Montréal, the Publisac comprises 11% of material sent for recycling. Prorated to Dorval, this suggests that the city is spending nearly $42,000 a year just to recycle Publisacs, many of which are thrown directly into the recycle bin without being read. Rather than blanket distribution to every household, would it not make more sense for people who actually do want to receive the Publisac to signal their consent by placing a small sticker on their mailboxes? This would be an extremely easy, cost-effective solution and significantly reduce our municipal recycling burden. In the end, Publisac is owned by a private company. It's not a public service, and it is not our obligation to support their wasteful business model. So thank you, Ms. Mariani, for the question. I know that we've spoken about Publisac before, and the idea of an opt-in model. So I presume, and there is another resident who asks a similar question later, that this is in part prompted by the announcement Montreal made, I think it was last week, to move to an opt-in model as well, which is what you've suggested. Immediately when we heard that, the council started discussing that, this is interesting, we should explore this option. But right now, the City of Montreal hasn't really articulated how it plans on implementing this. So it's really just an idea and an announcement that was made by the City of Montreal, not the actual path forward that they'll be using and the opt-in system that they would like to implement. So Dorval will be following that very closely because I think it is something interesting for us to consider as well in Dorval. But we're just waiting for more details about how the City of Montreal would intend to implement it so that we can see if that would also best serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Roerts. Second question from Mr. Levine. Mr. Levine, welcome. Would you like to read your questions yourself?
You know what? I probably would be better off because I don't have a clue what the questions are going to be.
Well, you sent in 3 questions.
Yeah, no, but I didn't actually send you in the questions. I sent you in what I was intending to ask. Can I just speak towards the last situation that you mentioned about Publisac?
Well, it's question period, Mr. Levine, and you did send in questions, so I would appreciate it if you would stick to
Okay.
that format, and if you have questions after everybody, all the other questions have been read,
That's just a
then
comment.
we'll take them.
Okay, let me see where. Might as well give it in the order that I sent it in to you.
Your first one had to do with the pollution in regards to the airport.
Okay. No, I'm just looking for the email. Actually, you know what? It's over here. Okay. Because I had problems with doing the questions. Okay. Where's everybody? Okay. The last time that I was here, I brought up the situation of black carbon particulate that comes off at the airport from jet engines that are not running efficiently. They don't run efficiently when they're on the ground and when they're coming in for landing. Since the last meeting, I've asked the chairperson of Airport de Montréal to purchase and set up monitoring devices in the residential areas of Dorval because they've never monitored, nobody has ever monitored the situation as far as their particulates in the residential areas of Dorval or anywhere else for that matter. The only place where they've consistently measured particulate is in Montreal, north of Rivière des Prairies. I'm not sure about the street there. 2 PhDs in Denmark have both done studies with regard to airport pollution, particularly black carbon particulate in the areas around airports. And they both concluded that living in residential areas around airports is dangerous. Personally, I asked Airport de Montréal to pay for air purifiers. They rejected that request. That was after 2 PhDs both encouraged me to get air purifiers. I advised Airport de Montréal, Yole, whatever, that I would be leaving Dorval and I would sue them for the cost of leaving. I hate to leave Dorval. It's a great place to live, except I don't like breathing in dangerous substances. So basically, yesterday, I asked the veterinarians at what used to be Langille's veterinary clinic to see if they could do an experiment and have mice living at their whatever facility, and then have mice living or other small animals living at various distances from their clinic. I haven't heard anything back, but to me this sounds like a way of finding out whether the lungs of mice or whatever animal that they choose, if it happens to show the black particulate accumulating in the lungs, it's much like cigarette smoke does, then it would be a good idea, a good way to find out. Yeah, I'm going to get to my question.
Yeah, it's a short preamble. That's the rules of operation in a council meeting. Let's get to the question.
My question is, and it really has nothing to do with what I wrote, is Dorval prepared to sue Airport de Montréal if they will not purchase monitoring devices that would monitor the residential areas of Dorval? Yes or no?
That's, it's not a question that you can answer in yes or no. I think before we discuss suing a federal organization, I think it would be better if I just had a discussion with them and see where they stand.
Okay. When will you be having that?
I can have that discussion at some point this week, possibly, maybe late next week at the latest.
Okay.
I
I look forward to
ask
hearing.
the DG to set up that conversation for us.
Okay. I look forward to hearing what results. Okay. At the last council meeting, I asked for, I won't call it remuneration, restitution for the $150, and I did confirm that it's $150 that I spent on ads to entice Dorval to do what they should have done 7 years ago when they first made the mistake with that intersection. And it was a mistake because it was fixed exactly as I had suggested. The situation is, as mentioned, I have saved Dorval, and Mr. Bourbeau can confirm that $1,000 a year at the time at the library by encouraging the use of, or at least the installation of inside doors. This didn't have to be done because there were already inside doors, but nobody ever thought of closing them. A year ago or so, 2 years ago, I made the suggestion that something be done at the aquatic center in order to keep the cold air from entering into the building and freezing the people at the front who were always wearing coats when I went in there. Something was done, the situation was solved. When I walked into this building tonight before question period, I happened to notice that there are no interior doors in this building. You got an awful long hallway, and you have this room as well. So basically you're heating up the outdoors by not having interior doors. You have like beautiful wooden, whatever, wood frame when you come in. I think that that would be a perfect place to put additional inside doors in order to keep the cold air from, and the warm air in the winter, summer, from, causing unnecessary use of energy in order to heat and cool, but specifically for heating purposes.
Is there
what
a
else?
question, Mr. Levine, please?
My question is, and hold on, as you're aware, I've made many suggestions to Dorval in the past that have improved safety. For all of these things, I think that I should be reimbursed the $150 that I paid simply because I'm worth a hell of a lot more than $150.
I don't dispute how much money you're worth.
My wife would.
Mr. Levine. The answer remains the same as last month, though. No, we will not be refunding you the $150 that you voluntarily spent on Facebook.
No, I always had the intention of asking back for the money. Okay.
Question number 3.
Question number 3. Okay, as I will be leaving Dorval pretty much permanently, on June the 6th, the hedges at corners that you cannot see through, and the fact that basically nothing is being done to keep cyclists, and I'm not referring to local cyclists, I'm talking about cyclists that start off in Verdun and go to St. Anne de Bellevue and then go back. Yes, excuse me. Is it dry in here or is it just me? Yesterday I could have very easily killed the cyclist at the corner of Lakeshore and Dorval Avenue. He had no intention of stopping, neither did I, okay? But I made him aware that I was there. Okay, I got in the engine. Very easy to step on the clutch and got in the engine. He saw me, almost died, okay? That's going to happen one day. Somebody is not going to see the cyclist. I'm aware of them. But some old person, I'm still young, is going to hit a cyclist, and they're going to go flying right into the St. Lawrence River if they happen to be traveling south, talking about the driver. The same situation exists when people are driving north. And now we have the time of the year when the ferry, godmother, going to Dorval Island, happens to be there. So the situation gets worse in the summer. So all I can say is, and from what I have learned, Matt Barrett was the president of the Bank of Montreal. Matt Barrett wasn't well educated for a banker. Matt Barrett eventually became the head of one of the largest banks.
Mr. Levine,
one of the largest
we need a
banks.
question.
One of the largest banks in the United Kingdom. Why? Because he listened to the people around him, the ones at the branches, and when there was a problem, he would say to them, guys, which solution do you recommend? They came up with the solution, he implemented the solution, and the solutions were great. Will you kindly see that cyclists are directed onto Dawson. I always forget the name. And
So if you ask your question, Mr. Trudeau will answer you.
hold on.
Mr. Levine, question, please.
Hold on. The last meeting, my questions concerning this situation did not appear in the recording. Okay? Whenever I get an answer, I always double check to see if the answer is the truth. Okay? That's the way I am.
Okay, Mr. Levine.
Okay? I'd like an answer from you. Not from him. The question is, will you finally do something to direct cyclists onto Dawson? Will you finally do something to see that the hedges at intersections abide by the, never mind the law. Jean-Francois, I sent him something, and to Chantal Bilodeau, I sent them both something from Dollar Des Mo. Dollar Des Mo doesn't go by 15 feet or whatever from the corner. They just look at an intersection, say it's either safe or not, and then they judge. I think that you should do the same thing here.
Okay,
Thank you very much. I don't need an answer.
okay. But Mr. Trudeau can answer.
You want an answer? Go ahead and answer.
As we always told you and told everyone, the city does encourage the cyclists, but
Local.
yeah, well, even non-local families from outside, they take Dawson. We can see them, the mom, the dad, 2 kids, and everything. But the pro racer, that's the problem. We're aware of it. SPVM is aware of it. They,
Used to be an ultra-endurance athlete.
yeah, but
Okay,
everybody's
I've
trying
seen
to.
70 kilometers
Yeah.
in a marathon.
Yeah.
I've cycled from Ottawa to Kingston and back the next day. I've done a 24-hour triathlon.
Okay.
You know what? One thing that I always did? I acted safely
Yeah.
because I wanted to do the next event.
That's
Believe me,
we.
the intelligence of the cyclists, okay, because I know the demographics of the cyclists that go through here, is superior to the local
Yeah,
population.
but we are trying hard on that. That's all we
Okay.
can say.
Okay.
I only go by what I see.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Levine. Third question came from Monsieur Pelletier. Would you like to read them yourself? Read them yourself? Yeah.
I'll read it. Merci.
Just for the record, 210 Neptune Avenue.
Thank you. For the last 42 years, yes. My first question. Further to the consultation meeting of last Thursday regarding the proposed changes to the urban planning bylaw, the Director of Urban Planning, Madame Hena, I believe it's
Hena.
Hena, confirmed that the new article that would allow for redevelopment projects to have an increased floor area of 300% of a demolished building is not intended to be applied for single-family dwellings. However, nowhere in the text is this mentioned. My question is, will there be a written confirmation into the proposed bylaw changes that this redevelopment article does not apply to single-family residential homes, as was stated last Thursday?
Okay. So this whole bylaw is a redevelopment, we'll call it a redevelopment tax. Okay, it's not a definition of how we apply le PIA across the city. It is strictly a set of rules that creates a framework for generating revenues for the city, for the improvement of parks and green spaces based on the redevelopment of a property, okay? Now, we're talking about large projects that we're seeing on Dorval Avenue and possibly in other areas of the city, possibly Bell in the future, we don't know. If in a couple of years, we have a new plan for the Triangle between the 20 and the 520, then
Well, I
that's
understand.
where it would be applied.
I understand
But in a
that.
residential context, if you take my property, my house, I can't grow it 300%. I can't demolish my house and grow it 300%. I can't even do it probably 200%. Doesn't fit. Okay? So in the context of a residential property, it doesn't apply. Could we find an exception in the city? Maybe there is a lot that exists that has a very little small property that is so big that you could build 300% bigger and still be within les marges. Possible, I doubt it. But as a very general comment, it doesn't apply to residential properties.
Then say so.
Pardon?
Then say so in written text. Because there is a danger that an owner can come along, demolish a bungalow, and build what I call a McMansion next to it, applying this regulation, and you can't get out of it because it's a bylaw.
I understand, but then we're not talking about this bylaw change. What we'll consider, we'll call it redevelopment tax in this room. Okay, then the PIA comes into effect, and he has to respect les marges latérales on both sides, front and back,
Yes,
and
I
all of the rules that exist. He's allowed to build within that framework of the PIA.
I understand that perfectly well. But the introduction of a home that would be 300 times and 300% bigger than the existing home that is demolished would have a severe impact on its neighbors.
Okay.
And the intention is not to be applied against residential buildings. My only request is very simple.
Okay.
That this intention be written.
I will. What I suggest, as you see, we've excluded from the council tonight various.
That's 3.3, I think.
Exactly, and the reason for that is so that the public has a period of time. We had the meeting on Thursday. Mm-hmm. We're Tuesday today, and the council feels that it would be prudent that residents who have additional questions, who aren't able to attend the meeting, can send in their questions, and we're going to set up a link on our web page where we put the presentation today in both French and English, which will direct questions directly to Le Bureau du Greffe, and that department will send to whoever is the question is pertinent to. So I would suggest you just send in that question to the Greffe, and she'll pass it on to Madame Achachena for review.
Excellent
and then she can
initiative.
reply back to you personally.
No, that's fine. That's excellent initiative. I'm preparing an email to Madame
Achachena.
I'll get it straight one day. And I'll send you CC.
Perfect.
Regarding these various points that were brought up last Thursday, and this will be one of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I can tell you that we've already made some adjustments to based on the suggestions that came out, and I believe most of them were yours. There will be some additions in regards to allowing solar panels in the industrial park. I think that was you who had brought that request.
That was not mine, no.
No,
I
was
made
it?
a recommendation, go from 80 to 90%.
So I think we've gone Mrs. Achachena has gone already and made a modification to 85%.
Okay.
With the feeling that we do, if we were purely residential, then maybe the 90 would be pertinent. But many of the cases that we're talking about on Dorval Avenue involve commercial on the ground floor, and we do want to allow the ability for shoppers, customers, and residents to be able to not go underground just to go do their shopping.
That's
so
fine.
again,
Okay.
it's 85 right now, but it's up for discussion, and I hope other people.
Fine. I think the initiative is great.
Okay.
Question 2. Has there been any movement regarding my request to have 7 buildings of heritage interest, as confirmed by the Dorval Historical Society, but which are presently not listed by the city, be added to the city's list?
Yeah, this will come in phase 2. Here we did the omnibus. There'll be an additional project that is going to be announced probably next month, where we're going to review the PEA. That's when we're going to.
So you're looking at it?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. And the third question concerns the historic walls at the corner of St. Charles and Lakeshore, the former entrance of the McEachran Estate. I find it strange that the extensive renovations to the St. Charles Park did not include any work to restore these historic walls, which would be the main entrance point to the park from Lakeshore Drive. My question is, will these stone walls be restored before the opening of the new park? And if so, who is the professional responsible for this restoration work?
Okay, I think I've answered that question both at the park consultation meeting and the month prior. Yes, we're going to rebuild that wall. I've always said that. Now, it's not part of the park project. However, that whole entrance, there's a triangle, I guess you could say, that comes down St. Charles, goes up to a property line, and then back up to the lakeshore. That will be done in a separate project. It will include that little triangle that is not part of the St. Charles Park project, but that will be dealt with by the city, which also includes new markings and adapting the pathways from the park to the two city parking lots, which could also include the chalet. Okay, that's going to be a separate project, and in there, we will be hiring a professional services company to write up all those les devis.
The specs, yeah.
And those will go out to tender, following tendering rules. It will not be specifically for the wall, but it'll be included in that.
Well, so the question regarding is it being done before the opening of the park, the answer is no.
It probably will be done at the same time or shortly after.
Okay. And do you know who the professionals will be?
Not yet.
Not established yet.
Not established yet.
Public call?
It'll be a call to tender, yes, but it won't be specifically for that. It will be for all of the work that we want to do in that little piece that I just mentioned, the triangle that goes from the pumping station to the residences to the lakeshore, which include the wall. We said we have to adapt the pavé uni.
Yeah.
We want to do there the panels with the historic panels where that explains the history of the property. We have to adapt it to the parking lots so that wheelchairs can access the park properly.
Okay. So it will be incorporated into a larger scope.
It will be an omnibus type of project with various little projects in it.
The wall is a historic wall.
Yeah.
The professionals who will be doing this work need to have knowledge of how to restore a masonry wall. And it's not any architect, just because he's an architect, who knows how to do this. It is a specific type of work. And it's not just a planning of a park.
Oh, I understand. There are many walls that have been rebuilt in Dorval along the lakeshore. We are aware that there are people who are specialists in that.
Okay, well, I would like to know eventually when the firms are established who would be doing this work.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
The next question is from Mrs. Thornburg. Will anybody
Yep.
reading?
So I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So as Mr. Mayor mentioned, this is from Marianne Thorborg from 325 Avenue du Charme. So there are three questions. The first one is regarding Pointe Picard. It reads, "It's great news that the city of Dorval can lease Pointe Picard while waiting to purchase the lot. However, we would like to have a clarification of what build means in the below extract from a former council meeting. Is it to build a new meeting house? How big do you foresee the building will be? We are hoping that you can maintain Pointe Picard as natural as possible and not be overly groomed." Here's the transcript from the meeting. "Whereas, in the meantime, the Department of National Defense, DND, proposes to grant to the City of Dorval a lease with provisional permission to build and permission to occupy the marina and the water lot. The whole subject to obtaining the necessary authorizations from the governmental authorities concerned and to the terms and conditions contained in the regulation respecting the water domain of the state that would be in effect at the time of signing of such an agreement, an occupation agreement, if applicable. On the proposal of Councillor Christopher Von Roritz, seconded by Councillor Pascal Brot." So thank you for the question, Ms. Thorborg. I'll try and clarify, because maybe I apologize if I wasn't clear last month. The motion that was passed last month was not to definitively lease the space, but rather to enter into negotiations with with the federal government, I believe, about what that could look like, the rental of that space. Things like what would we be permitted to do with the space? What would the time frame be when we're renting it? Because obviously it would be the summer that we would want it. And understanding what their expectations would be of access to the space as well, if there's work that the federal government believes needs to be done on the space. So it's not a fait accompli that we will be renting it, but rather that we would like to have conversations about potentially renting it. And so in that sense, there aren't any plans for a specific building. It was part of the preamble, the motion, so that it's included in there, but that's not necessarily where we are, and I don't think there's any intentions or plans at this stage among the council of what we would be building should we be able to rent the space.
That's correct, Mr. Von Roers.
So I'll move to the second question, which is about Publisac. So for May 2023, Montreal will impose an opt-in for Publisac, and you provide a link to the CTV News article. Can we please do the same in Dorval? I don't think there's anything else I have to add to this beyond what I mentioned in responding to Mrs. Mariani's question. It's something that I think there's certainly an interest in for being able to apply for Dorval, but we want to see exactly how Montreal intends to apply it before we can commit one way or another. And then the third question, I think it's actually a statement. I'll still read it. Very impressive work with Phase 1 for St. Charles Park, and it will for sure be magnificent. It would be great if you could involve us citizens a bit earlier for the phase behind the tennis courts, as that will directly involve people's backyards, but also offers the beauty of nature as it is. Thank you. And on a side note, I want to thank the mayor for steering Dorval toward a bicycle and pedestrian-friendly community. Suburbanites can and must learn to use the car less often from the perspective of the climate crisis. So thank you thank you for pour les fleurs, Ms. Thorberg, I think, to Mr. Doré,
Yeah.
and for the recommendation of how to proceed. We're not close to phase 2, but I think that's valuable insight for when we get there.
Very good. Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Mr. Von Roers. Question number 6 from Mrs. Cornoyer. Oh, sorry. Mr. Antonucci, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to take that one if I could. So Bob Antonucci, 1045 2nd Avenue in Dorval. So Mr. Antonucci poses one question about community aid services for seniors. Currently, Dorval Community Aid provides STM bus tickets for seniors 65 years and over. The eligibility rules are you must be 65 collecting old age security and also the guaranteed income supplement. The current free allotment for this group of seniors is 20 STM tickets per month. Someone 65 and only collecting old age security would not qualify. Currently, the STM fare upon presentation of a photo ID Opus card obtained by the user for 65 and over is $1. In an effort to encourage more seniors to forego their vehicles in favor of public transit, perhaps this same benefit can also be extended to those only collecting old age security. If not 20 free STM tickets, perhaps 10 tickets would be appreciated for this group. Considering the transit-oriented development in the Todd philosophy, this new benefit would represent a minimal cost to the city and at the same time encourages use of public transit. Kindly consider this new initiative. So as I understand it, tickets used to be given. Currently, the way it is functioning is that actually the Opus card is 20 passages are given onto an Opus card. So this is an interesting suggestion on your part, Mr. Antonucci, and what I would suggest is that we'll bring it to Ms. Jane Rajka, who's the department head for community aid. They manage this program, so we'll have discussions with them about it, and thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mrs. Duchatel. Very appropriate answer, and we'll look into that. Next question is Madame Cournoyer, and she's at 170 McNichol Crescent. She has 3 questions. Questions number 1, Royal Dixie Park is in an area of Dorval with the highest density and highest demographic for young families. Yet the park shows evidence of poor maintenance and neglect. The concrete is broken in many spots and has settled into the ground with poor drainage as water pools over the sunken areas. The swing showed evidence of rust. The park itself is right on Highway 20, and the railway and the environment is gritty with road pollution. Last Thursday, our urban planner gave us an eloquent presentation on how Dorval intends on reducing the heat island effect in its core by requiring vegetation screens and burns planted with 60% conifers, as well as other trees and bushes between multi-purpose complexes and bushes. I think it's bushes, not bushes, between multi-purpose complexes and single-family dwellings. Royal Dixie finds itself in a situation in a heat island of its own, surrounded by apartment blocks, and would greatly benefit from a green screen planted around the periphery and facing Highway 20. As well as reducing heat, such a green screen would provide a buffer against roadside grit flying off the highway and providing much needed oxygen to the children who play there. It would enhance the quality of life for those frequenting the park in an immeasurable degree. Will the city put a green screen in Royal Dixie Park and so set the example of development for greener Dorval? We will certainly bring this to the attention of our public works team this summer. We'll also make sure that they're aware of the maintenance. They do maintenance every year to all our park equipments, but make sure that they do make the maintenance on the swing set that has some peeled paint. And, right today, if you look at any one of our parks, this is not the optimal time. We're coming out of winter. They're all dirty. The grass is brown. And that park is no exception. But we will certainly pass on the message to get to see what we can do about putting up some bushes along the fence line close to the highway. Question number 2, selection date for a citizen consultation. Last Thursday, the city held a citizen consultation on the new zoning bylaw changes. The dates chosen was Thursday of Holy Week and the time of religious observance by many. Passover was taking place at the same time, and for those with religious affiliations, it was the start of Easter long weekend. Many people who would have wanted to be there could not attend. The city did not allow for written questions to be submitted to the citizen consultation ahead of time, nor did it record the consultation and make it available on the city website. Though Mark Doria indicated in the minutes of the meeting that the PowerPoint presentation by our urban planning department would be made available later this week, it was not there for people to see before the city council meeting where the second draft of the bylaws will be passed. If a consultation is to be genuine, one must lost my place. If a citizen consultation is to be genuine, one would think that the legislation might be redrafted or tweaked to reflect citizens' concern raised at the meeting. Yet there was little time for the city public servants to do this, and at the meeting it was immediately followed by statutory holidays where no one would be in their offices to do the work. Was the date of that citizen consultation chosen simply because the city had a legal obligation to hold one, and the date was chosen so as to curtail as much citizen participation as possible? And will it be a pattern of this new administration to follow in future citizens consultations? Mrs. Cournoyer, basically, there's quite a bit of questions in here, so I'll just go through this quickly. The presentation in English and French was posted on the website of the city around lunchtime today in both languages. As you heard earlier, we will be not approving certain amendments tonight, and this is to allow a period of 1 month of reflection where citizens, as I mentioned earlier, citizens can send in questions. We'll have a link up tomorrow at the same location where the presentations are hosted today. That will redirect to the city clerk's office. Residents will be able to send in their emails, and the questions will be redirected to the appropriate persons. At the same time, because we will make the public notice at the next meeting, it gives us an additional 2 weeks to ask questions. So really the question period that will be allowed will be a total of 6 weeks. We felt that asking questions to an audience that wasn't in the room wasn't the best way to answer very technical questions. And so I encourage anybody who wasn't at the presentation to take the next few weeks, review the presentation that is online, and send in your questions. I'll also add that in the coming days, the procès verbal of that meeting will be made online. I would hope that it is Friday. It could run into early next week, and that is because there's a fair amount of work. There's almost 2 hours of discussion that needs to be transcripted and written up in both languages. So that will also be available. So all of this on the website, I think people will have all of the information that they need, and I don't think that in itself, I think actually that is a very transparent process. I will read question number 3. Explain the petition register referendum process. It is my understanding that the new zoning bylaws will be subject to a petition register referendum process. Could you please explain how this will work? Will citizens be able to contest a particular bylaw change, for example, that the parking or any other specific change? Will the zones of Dorval be eligible for petition for referendum? How do the petitions have to be worded? Does the wording have to be checked out with the city clerk to make sure the petition can be received? How many signatures is needed in each district? And if each signature is received, how does the register work? Please walk us through the process so that citizens will be who wish to avail themselves of it know how to proceed. Mrs. Cournoyer, I will. This question will be answered in a couple of weeks, but the question can be asked to the city clerk. However, the information will. There's a fair amount of work to be done, and once we give the avis de notice in hopefully 6 weeks, so we'll approve it. The avis at the next council meeting. It takes 2 weeks after that to be posted. The avis will have all of the answers to the questions that you're asking tonight. I certainly do not want to give half answers to every possible scenario. The city clerk's office will start working on this week, and if you give them 2 or 3 weeks, the process will be clearly identified and posted on our website so that it's clear for everyone. So I hope that answers your questions. Thank you very much. Question number 7, Mrs. Vicky Jones. Did someone want to take those questions, or shall I read them?
I can read them if you want to answer them.
Go ahead, I'll answer them.
All right, just to give you a break in between. So Mrs. Vicky Jones from 350 102 Lakeshore Boulevard. First question is for item 4.1 on the agenda, professional services in urban planning and land use, analysis project and regulatory strategies. Can you please explain and expand on the meaning of this? You have an urban planning director, you have the CCU team, you are hiring a project coordinator for urban planning, Article 8.3, and tell us what needs to be strategized and how much is all this new development planning costing the taxpayers?
Mrs. Jones, really the answer is much more simple than that. The city requires some project managers for all the various projects that we have throughout the city, be them park renovations, construction work. I can list a few: Parc Saint-Charles, Dorval Arena, and Sarto Denoyer, various projects. We should have 2 of them in the city. Currently, we have 1. We have 1 vacancy, and we're looking to hire a second project manager. It's as simple as that.
Question 2. Item 4.17 on the agenda, services of candidate recruitment, support, and integration coaching. Can you please explain which position was it necessary to have a recruitment, coaching, and integration coaching for?
Mrs. Jones, as we've discussed in the past, it is possible that we're hiring a consultant to aid us in finding our future Director General for the city, and that is what we'll be approving tonight. It's a budgetary envelope to go through this process. Thank you.
And the final question on agenda item 4.18, professional services citizen park development project. These professional services referred to in this article are not clear which services are being paid. For the space at the corner of Lakeshore and Cloverdale, in the September 2021 council meeting approved the sum of $24,500, which was already awarded to an architect. Before this moves further ahead and is indeed a citizen park, is it not time for the citizens that will be impacted and hopefully be able to enjoy this space have their voices heard of what they would like to see and not just be presented with a fait accompli?
Mrs. Jones, to your question, we already hired a landscape architect who has prepared different scenarios for this space, and I tend not to use park as a way of describing it. It's not a play park. It will be a space where citizens, and I think we've always said this, it will be a place where citizens can just take a bit of time and reflect on nature, read a book, or just enjoy being outside. And so we hired a landscape architect who proposed to the council 3 scenarios, and we are waiting now for the final vision of what that will look like, and I expect that in the next couple of weeks we'll be displaying the proposal to residents via our website. Tonight, what we are approving is a professional services contract to draw up the technical documents so that we can go to tender and start the building of the park. So that's where we're at right now. Thank you for your question. Mr. Nzola, would you like me to read your questions, or would you like to come up to the mic?
Well, not that I'm a terrific reader, but I always like to respond and make it longer than it is. So
But we'll try tonight to keep it short, right? We're on a roll. We're in good shape. We'll keep it short.
the first question was sort of already touched on. I was unable to attend last Thursday night's consultation meeting. The meetings are obligatory by law. They are supposed to give citizens every opportunity to be part of the process and truly understand what impact the bylaws will have on their city. The meetings were not webcasted. Citizens were not given the opportunity to send in any questions. The city website contained no information on the bylaws before or after the meeting, yet tonight you will be adopting these new bylaws. Luckily in Dorval, we have 2 very involved and dedicated citizens who provide us with important information about the city we live in, which they post on their Facebook pages. One of the posts had a slide of a chart on parking ratios. In it, 6 cities were named, showing their parking ratios. 2 of the cities are part of Montreal, and 1 is an off-island city. Your goal is to provide citizens with proper information. Your obligation should be to show maximum information of comparable cities. Why did you not provide a chart with 10 independent neighboring cities to show their parking ratios?
Okay. So, Mr. Nzola, I think I've kind of responded to many of these questions. You know, on the agenda, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 will be withdrawn and represented next month. Citizens can come, will be able to send in emails or even contact urban planning if they have any additional questions. I felt the discussions that evening were very technical, and it was more important that there was a panel to ask questions as opposed to just posing a question and the person not being in the room. That being said, it was a very lengthy discussion. I think we had not that many people, but we had a lot of questions. Mrs. Bilodeau is working on the procès verbal of that meeting, and all the questions will be there and identified. Now, as for your specific question, why did we use 5 over 10? I think we did discuss at the meeting that there were 10 proposals, but for the slides, we put in 5. I mean, we could have had 15 and put in 10. It's not that we're trying to hide anything, it's just for efficiency, we only put 5 in the presentation. But I invite you to ask your question. We have the information for 10.
Why were those 6 cities chosen over other cities?
I didn't create that I don't have the information. Do you, Mr.
Well, I don't have the answer, but I think what Mrs. Hashashan mentioned during the meeting is that, it was 10 or 12 were looked at. These 6 are representative, but for the sake of showing, I mean, if all 12 had been listed, it would already the slide was a little small. But if you contact Mrs. Hashashan, I believe she'd be able to tell you
Absolutely.
all the ones that were looked at.
Okay, thank you. Second.
Can you step forward
Closer to the mic.
Okay, yes. Second question, being concerned about our environment, I look at all our bylaws from that point of view. The lack of green space surrounding our structures is very concerning. Green spaces are not only necessary to preserve our environment, they are also necessary for our health and well-being. It has been shown in studies that people living near green spaces are both happier and are healthier and happier compared to those who do not. Another of the slides I saw showed that a 10-unit building backing onto a single-family home must leave 8 feet of green space at the back of its property. This is a ridiculously small green space. It also shows no minimum green space requirements if these buildings are not backing single-family homes. If this administration is concerned about our environment and the well-being of its citizens, why does it not adopt a bylaw calling for a minimum of 30% green space on all lots?
Thank you, Mr. Nzola. We reflected upon that today, and we think that question was actually asked at the consultation last Thursday. This was not part of the discussion that we were having at the Thursday meeting, but this will fall into this next phase that will be starting in the next few months. We're going to be approving an offre de service for BC2 to work on this phase 2, and that's part of the PEA, and that's where your question is pertinent. So wasn't part of the Thursday discussion. It will be part, that sort of discussion will be coming up in the next phase of what we have to do. This process, by the way, is going to last for about a year with different consultations.
The next phase is going to be a long time away.
It's going to be done in the next 10 to 12 months, and it's a consultative process. There'll be workshops that will take place over time. It's a fairly lengthy process.
Okay, I guess it's better late than never. As to that, on that topic, now if a 10-unit building is going up next to a single-family home, they have to leave 8 foot of green space. If it's going up next to another 10-story building, they don't have to leave any green space?
Mr. Nzola, if you want specifics, I think it's best that we point the question to our urban planning department. I just don't want to say anything that is.
Because that's what it seemed like to me. Because it specifically said single-family homes, backing onto single-family homes. It didn't say backing onto any other property. It said single-family homes.
Correct.
So I'm wondering if a 10-unit building with much more people, don't they deserve to have a green space?
They do, and that's one of the proposals in there. I believe it's 1.5 meters. But I don't want to get into specifics tonight. because I think the best person to answer you is our Director of Urban Planning. So I invite you to send in an email with that question, and she will reply back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah?
Question number 3, this administration has put a freeze on a section of our industrial park in order to study requests made by developers. This is another example of developers dictating what our urban plan should be and what our city should look like. Can you tell us what specific requests these developers have made?
Okay. So, Mr. Nizola, your statement is false. There's no developers who are asking anything in that part of the city. So I'm talking.
That's what I saw on your information on your website.
So
no. So don't say my statement is incorrect, because you are incorrect. I can find it right now. I could look for it on the city website. It says the city wants to study requests made by developers. That's what it says. That's what it says.
Okay, I don't have that exact sentence in front of me and in what context it's being said. So let me explain.
It's a very short paragraph on the webpage.
So let me explain the resolution that we did to freeze the triangle, which exists between Highway 20, 520, which is Côte-Elias, and 55th Avenue. Okay, when we redid the urban plan eight-ish years ago, we had a discussion with the agglomeration of Montreal in regards to developing a new vision of what that looks like. Presently today we have light industrial, we have commercial, we have residential. It's a mishmash of a whole bunch of different regulations. At that time, our request to review that area and the zoning and its purpose and its vision was refused. Okay. What we've done now is we've put a freeze on that area so that we can come back to that same discussion. And how this will take place is that we will have a discussion with the CMM, which has an agglo plan, which has a development, an urban plan for the entirety of the CMM, which, I don't know, is, Monsieur Bobo, do you know, somewhere around 120 cities, maybe?
115.
115. And that is imposed on top of the agglomeration of Montreal urban plan, which is imposed onto us. What we would like to have is a review of that area. We'd like to find a new definition, a new vision of what that can be. And if we can do that, go through these steps, and it's approved, then that would go to the ministry in Quebec for approval or denial. This has nothing to do with developers. This is about a vision of what we would like to see.
I just repeated
I understand.
what your statement said.
But I
the
just
city of Dorval has put a freeze on this section of their plan to study requests made by developers. That's what your statement said.
But there's no request.
Exactly that.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to know what.
Can you read it?
I think it pertains to this. The city now wishes to reflect on the future of the unstructured sector that must deal with difficult cohabitation between usages, industrial and residential, and undertake a collaborative planning process before allowing new regulatory amendments requests from land developers. I think that's the...
I think that's it, yeah.
So
requests from land developers.
But we don't have any requests. Your question is, can you tell us what specific requests these developers have made? We have none. We have no projects. There's nothing been going on in that area for better part of 2 years. And there's no projects.
Why does it say that in your?
So the phrasing, and maybe it's not as clear as it could be, is that before entertaining these requests, we want to have this reflective exercise.
So you've had no requests, but you think requests are going to come all of a sudden. They're going to come. So up to now, you've had no requests. For the past 50 years, you've had no requests, but you know they're going to come, so you want to get ready for them.
What we want to do is have a vision develop a vision of that area before requests
You
come
mean
to
no,
us.
no landowner up there, it said, can I put up a condo here? Can I do this here? Can I
they
do
can't.
that here? You've never had a request like that. You've never had a request like that.
You can't put a condo there. So no, there hasn't been any requests to put up. The request that we get is for industrial buildings. I think we've approved in the last 5, 6 years a few hotels. But that's about it.
Okay, and the Inuit complex. That, yeah,
Yes,
hotels is also, you know, these are other important parts of our urban plan, yeah.
It is.
That's fine, I just thought that sentence needed a clarification. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions in the room? We'll go with Mr. Wilkinson. I hope you enjoyed your vacation in the South.
It was brought to an abrupt end last night at 11 o'clock when the information officer informed me that I would have 10 to 15 centimeters of snow in the morning. This is after 3 months of pure sunshine, temperatures between 25 and 28 degrees every day.
Well, we are all envious.
No, you're not. No, it was really a treat. That's the enjoyment when you finally get your wife to retire. So joins me in retirement, and next year it'll be 6 months. Thank you for, I'll tell you who I am. I think that hasn't changed. I don't know. There's a few changes. He just made me aware that I'm supposed to submit my questions. I wasn't aware of that. I have remained pretty ignorant of what's been going on here by design. So, yes, my name is Paul Wilkinson, 391 Tuesday. And I had just a couple of follow-up questions with you, Mr. Mayor, following that meeting March the 3rd. I don't know if you've had any. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate because of my locale was in the middle of a construction zone.
That's okay.
You wouldn't have wanted me to have anything to say because as soon as I did, it was like, so I escaped every day from 8 to 5:30. Had great places to go and things to do, but hosting a meeting wasn't going to help us.
I thought the meeting was fantastic. Clearly, there's some very smart people in the world who understand and you know the complexities of what is going on, and you know the presentation was a few people who articulated very well their points of views, and I think it's all very pertinent. I think the next step is to do a follow-up. I do have some more discussions to have with the airport. I was able to meet with them recently, but we do need to have more discussions, and actually I wanted to discuss it with them and what they know. I know, all I know for the moment is that there's no installations going up at this time. We'll also be going to the FCM, where I think that will be one of the discussions there, and I'll make sure that I attend those discussions as well, because I think they're presenting something on that.
Is there anything that you'd like from C4ST prior to that?
Pardon?
Is there anything that you would like before your meetings with them?
I think it would probably best that we can that we hear what the FCM has to present, and then probably get back together as quickly as possible, where I would like to have the council also involved, because I think the information is important.
Yeah, well, certainly Environment Committee and with Chris, and I guess you're going to be on the Environment Committee as well.
As well.
But that were the specifics, or in general, actually, that we can provide, or specifically C4ST can provide. Every day, the radiation factor becomes much worse.
So, for everyone in the room, what we're talking, what we're talking about is the impact of 5G on our neighborhoods, on our community, and the effects it has on people.
Yeah, not just 5G. 5G, like, it's actually wireless. Anything that's wireless. So 3G, 4G, and of course 5G is the biggest, strongest radiation we're going to be exposed to, and there's been zero testing that we're aware of, certainly by the federal government. The UN provided information 10 years ago and said it could cause cancer. So the testing hasn't been done. The testing that they use, the yardstick is 25 years old. So 5G wasn't even around at that point. So there's a lot that has to be done to put things in place. But certainly when you mention people, Frank Clegg and Paul Haru are right at the top worldwide. So we're very fortunate to have them working with us. So I'll be getting in touch with them, and if you have something to add, let me know.
Well, I think one of the pieces that struck me from that conversation, and that's really what I'd like to hear a little bit from our in the at the FCM from the people who are going to be making the presentations, and I hope the federal government will be there, is to explain, can we regulate towers? Something that we've always been told cannot happen. The group that during the presentation, they said, look, just pass bylaws and deal with the rest later. And that was an interesting concept. I don't necessarily think that, that's just doing something willy-nilly is the best way to go. But I would like to hear whether or not we do have some sort of say in this, because I don't know. Municipalities have to have a say in what gets built in their communities. And right now we have nothing. They just come in one day, install a tower, and it's done. And these towers are particularly close together, if I understood.
Yes, they are, because of the density of the frequencies and what have you. If they're too far apart, they just don't work. So of necessity, you're going to have several on each block. So it's a little scary, and it will in fact impact it's going to go up close to somebody's house. And if you've got to wake up one morning and you've got that cell tower and it's right staring you in the face, the real estate values of our properties will drop quite a bit. 20% is what I've heard from real estate agents. So, people across the country are waking up and finding they've got towers going up in the neighborhood. We know there's a moratorium around the airport, but how far does that stretch? Nobody really knows. And because they don't know what they're playing with. It's like a little kid with a box of matches. And somebody's going to get burned. And we'd rather see safe protocols in place. And that means wired, because years ago, several years back, I was visited by Bell, and they're telling me we're putting in fiber optics. Well, the cost of putting in the fiber optics then, it's been done. Now it's just a matter of running it from the street to the house. And we don't need wireless running through our neighborhoods. That's what it's all about, because we're not against 5G. It's like, okay, just make it wired, because the difference substantially is going to be affecting, how shall I put it, the environmental concerns later. Wi-Fi is going to cost at least 10 times as much as fiber optics. So the big boys don't want to put in the fiber optics. That's more cost. I'm looking at it and saying, it's already there. As far as I know, it's on my street. It's probably on your street. So
It's on mine.
how much is it to go from the street to the house? The big boys want to make it wireless, but we don't need it. That's the whole point. And it's a lot safer. Nobody's going to get burned when it's wired. So I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Welcome back to the cold snow.
Sorry?
Welcome back to the cold snow.
Thanks. My golf buddies were telling me they were playing this week. I think they were pulling my leg. I don't know. They're going back indoors.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Monsieur Levine. And a short preamble, please.
Okay, getting back to the Publisac. Do you know if Montreal has looked into the possibility that they might be infringing on freedom of the press because Publisac does distribute newspapers, or at least they did in the past, via their plastic bags? Do you have any
That's
idea?
how you get Le Messager.
Yeah, so I don't know what Montreal has looked at. I mean, that is one of the considerations, right, is the distribution of Le Messager.
Okay, no, because years ago, I came up with the idea of doing the same thing that Montreal wants to do in order to cut down on the need for recycling. And I spoke to the newspaper editor, who happens to be a lawyer, and he told me they couldn't do it. Okay, that's that. No preamble.
Short preamble.
Is Dorval negotiating with, I forget the name of the homes here at Prizzy, for land, for forest? I think I sent you an email.
Yeah, there's property there that has been ceded to the city. I don't know the exact number, if it's 10 or 12 or 13%, but there's a portion of land that has been ceded to the city, yes.
Okay, was this in the original deal, or this was something afterwards?
This was in the original negotiations.
Okay,
The
so
project
there's-
was developed 2 years ago, 3
Okay,
years
so there's
ago.
nothing that, over and above, that was that. Okay. And my third question, no preamble. Will Dorval be installing an interior door, as I suggested earlier?
I have no idea. We'll take it upon consideration.
Thanks. No further questions.
If we have no more questions, Mr. Nozola?
Sorry to bother you again, but just a small thing that concerns me, and I think it reflects badly on the city. On my street, St. Charles, next to the park, the blue fence, metal fence for the construction work has fell down Friday evening
In the wind?
in the wind. Yeah, when I came home from work, I saw it on the floor. Saturday morning, I leave early for work. I saw it on the floor, and I said to myself, I hope someone picks it up because it's blocking the sidewalk. It fell on the sidewalk next to the park, and the sidewalk there is higher than most sidewalks. So if you're walking on the sidewalk and there's a fence in the way, you got to make your way to the street and go around it and go back up on the sidewalk.
Mr.
So-
Bourbeau will take note.
So Saturday it was still there. Saturday night when I came home, there was yellow tape around it. So I said, at least somebody noticed. They put yellow tape around it. So I said, they're going to come and move it, flip it to the other side. Tonight, it's still there on the sidewalk, with yellow tape on it. So little things like that, I reflect badly on the city. Someone walking on the sidewalk next to the park can't walk down the sidewalk because the stupid construction fence has been lying there for 4 days.
It's fine. Mr. Bourbeau is going to take note. He'll reach out to the city of Montreal.
So the reason it bothers me is because city workers drive down the street often, so.
But it's not.
Just because you're sweeping the street doesn't mean you shouldn't report it and say, hey, send someone over to move this, or get out of your truck and move it,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Is that it for questions? Very good. So that concludes the question period. On va continuer avec approbation et dépôt de documents. 2.1. Approbation du procès-verbal de la séance tenue le 21 mars. Est-ce qu'on a des questions, des ajouts?
Non. Monsieur le maire, je voudrais proposer l'adoption du procès-verbal de la séance du 21 mars 2022 tel que rédigé.
Je seconde, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 2.2, rapport de la greffière sur la formation obligatoire des élus en matière d'éthique et déontologie municipale.
Oui, je confirme que tous les membres du conseil ont... Oui, merci. Je confirme que tous les membres du conseil ont dûment complété la formation sur l'éthique et la déontologie qui était obligatoire et qui était offerte par l'UMQ. So I confirm that all members of council have duly completed the mandatory training on ethic and conduct offered by the Union des municipalités du Québec.
It's good news. Merci. 3.1, avis de motion de dépôt de projet règlement RCM-55.1-2022.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je donne avis de motion, motion à effecter le proposé à une séance ultérieure du conseil, le règlement RCM 51.1-2022, modifiant le règlement RCM 55-2015 relatif à la lutte contre la propagation de l'argile du frêne sur le territoire de Dorval et dépose les dits projets de règlement.
Juste pour expliquer comment on doit faire pour les avis de motion, que c'est suite à ce qu'on a fait le mois passé, quand on a approuvé les dépenses du côté financier. Là, c'est le côté légal au sujet du règlement pour rester consistant avec nos subventions.
Merci. On a un appuyeur? Pas, c'est un dépôt. OK. 3.2, avis de motion de dépôt de projet de règlement de contrôle intérimaire RCM-91-2022.
Monsieur le maire, je donne avis de motion à l'effet de proposer à une séance ultérieure du conseil le règlement de contrôle intérimaire RCM-91-2022 aux fins d'entamer une réflexion quant à la vocation du secteur situé entre l'autoroute 20, le chemin de la Côte de Liesse et la 55e avenue et dépose le dit projet de règlement.
Un appuyeur?
Non,
c'est
juste
un appui. Un avis. Le 3.2 est retiré, 3.3, 3.4 et 3.5 sont tous retirés. Le 3.6, adoption de règlement RCM-90-2022.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we adopt bylaw RCM 90-2022, which relates to the manners in which public notices are published by the City of Dorval, as submitted and described last meeting by Mr. Trudeau.
I second that.
Merci. 3.7, adoption du règlement RCM-4.3.3-2022.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je propose d'adopter le règlement RCM 43.3-2022, modifiant de nouveau le règlement RCM 43-2012, établissant un code d'éthique et de déontologie des employés municipaux tel que soumis le mois dernier. En gros, il s'agit tout simplement que tout employé ne peut recevoir aucun cadeau sous toute forme, soit de contracteur ou de résident at large. Alors, c'est dans l'optique de leur travail, aucun cadeau, point à la ligne.
Exactement. Merci.
Je seconde.
Secondaire, oui. Le 3.8, règlement de délégation, compte rendu du directeur général. Est-ce qu'on a des questions additionnelles? On est bien. 4.1, service professionnel en urbanisme et aménagement du territoire.
Juste pour expliquer, parce que vous l'avez mentionné à quelques fois ce soir, Monsieur le maire, ça commence le phase 2 de nos réflexions sur le plan durable. Donc, je propose que nous autorisons l'émission d'un bon de commande à la firme BC2 pour effectuer l'analyse et stratégie réglementaire au montant global de 95 572,97 $, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à son offre de service datée du 17 mars 2022.
Je seconde.
Merci. 4.2, renouvellement de couverture d'assurance responsabilité civile et municipale.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'autoriser le paiement à BFL Canada Risques et Assurance Inc. de la facture émise le 3 mars 2022 au montant de 85 990 $, toutes taxes comprises, représentant le coût du renouvellement de couverture d'assurance responsabilité civile primaire, complémentaire et excédentaire et de responsabilité municipale pour la période du 16 février 2022 au 15 février 2023.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 4.3, fourniture et installation d'une structure d'entraînement.
Mr. Mayor, I propose that we issue contract LC 2021-05 to Tessier Recreopark Inc. The bidder that submitted a bid that was consistent with what was requested by the plans to provide and install an exercise unit with rubberized flooring or rubberized surface for a total amount of $136,972.57, all taxes included, consistent with the bid opened January 11th, 2022.
Thank you, and that's a...
I second that.
Thank you. That's a project that should be installed at the early spring, summer next year. Thank you.
Le secondaire, c'était qui?
Monsieur.
Merci.
4.4, programme de travailleurs de milieu de rue.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'émettre un bon de commande à AJOIE, Action Jeunesse de l'Ouest de l'île, pour des services d'intervention offerts dans le cadre du programme de travailleurs de milieu de rue 2022 pour une période de 7 mois au coût global de 30 129 $.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Très bon programme, merci. Service 4.5, service d'aide et à la rédaction de devis techniques.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je propose d'autoriser le renouvellement de l'entente avec la Fédération québécoise des municipalités FQM pour un montant ne dépassant pas 50 000 $, toutes taxes comprises, pour 2022. D'autoriser le directeur des travaux publics à effectuer toute familialité découlant du renouvellement de cette entente et à signer tout document requis pour 2022.
J'appuie.
Merci. 4.6, service de production de spectacles pyrotechniques.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'autoriser l'émission d'un bon de commande à l'entreprise 3983200 Canada Inc., Apogée, pour la production de spectacles pyrotechniques pour les festivités du 24 de juin et du 1er juillet pour 2022-2023 au montant global de 55 188, toutes taxes comprises, et aux conditions stipulées à la convention de service signée le 13 avril 2022.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 4.7, service de gestion de projet.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it would be to that the resolution CM 2203-133 adopted on March 21st, 2022, that correction be replacing the amount of $44,265.38, including tax, for $54,998.15, including tax.
I second the motion.
Merci. 4.8, fourniture de 5 afficheurs de
Oui.
vitesse.
Monsieur le maire, je vais lire le préambule de cette résolution. Attendu que dans le cadre de la sécurisation du territoire de la cité de Dorval, le comité de circulation recommande d'acheter 5 afficheurs de vitesse qui seront installés de façon permanente à des endroits stratégiques. Attendu que les analyses de vitesse et de circulation réalisées à l'aide de ces appareils feront état de la situation actuelle du réseau routier et permettront de suivre son évolution. Autrement dit, optimiser la sécurité dans nos rues. Donc, je propose de mettre une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Signalisation Qualitech Inc. pour la fourniture de 5 afficheurs de vitesse de type radar premium avec message et ensemble capteur solaire au montant global de 30 514,36, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à sa soumission du 11 mars 2022.
Je seconde.
Merci et on remercie les efforts du comité de circulation pour cette recommandation. 4.9, fourniture de 4 systèmes de traverse pétionnière.
Monsieur, voulez-vous faire une explication encore? Non? Ben, je pense que c'est dans la motion. Ça va être pour protéger des traverses piétonniers. Ça peut déjà se voir, si je ne me trompe pas, proche de centre d'achat, ainsi que, vous l'avez ça sur Bouchard? Oui. Donc, ça va être pour 4 autres systèmes. Je propose qu'on émet une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Signal Services Inc. pour la fourniture de 4 systèmes clignotantes avec barre à DEL pour un montant global de 27 598,60 $, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à sa soumission du 11 mars 2022.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire. Oups, excusez, Nicole.
Et je comprends qu'on va prioriser les écoles scolaires, c'est ça?
Oui, les zones scolaires en premier.
Excellent. 4.10, services professionnels.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, de retenir les services professionnels de Aon pour effectuer l'évaluation actuarielle du régime d'assurance collective offert à la retraite pour les employés col bleu et cadres de la Cité de Dorval au 31 décembre 2021 pour un montant global de 12 647,25 $, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à leur proposition d'honoraires.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 4.11 est retiré pour le mois prochain. 4.12, autorisation d'une signature d'une entente de confidentialité. Excuse.
Mr. Mayor, I propose that we authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign for and in the name of the city of Dorval confidentiality and non-divulgation agreement with Via Rail Canada in the context of train infrastructure work that's going to be completed on over the territory of the city of Dorval, consistent with the terms and conditions of the agreement that are included with the dossier 2022-04-011560, and to authorize the Director of Public Works to act for and in the name of the City of Dorval relative to any questions related to this agreement, and to be able to sign documents, administrative documents that may be required to apply the terms and conditions that are outlined in this agreement, this confidentiality agreement, as described in the present resolution.
I second that.
Thank you. And this has to do with work being done at the Via Rail Station.
Non-disclosure agreement.
Non-disclosure, correct. 4.13, fourniture d'un compresseur à air.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'émettre une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Comerco, soumissionnaire ayant fourni le meilleur prix pour la fourniture d'un compresseur à air avec tuyau 100 pieds, incluant le démarrage par un technicien, transport et réservoir vide au montant global de 36 580,45 $, conformément au tableau d'analyse des prix fournis par le Service des ressources matérielles.
Je seconde.
Merci. 4.14, fourniture d'une déchiqueteuse.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je propose d'autoriser l'émission d'une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Douglas PowerTech Inc., plus bas soumissionnaire conforme pour la fourniture d'une déchiqueteuse à branches, remorque et Mac Bandit, année de fabrication 2022, au montant soumissionné de 109 097,68 $, toutes taxes comprises, incluant une garantie prolongée de 24 mois conformément à sa soumission ouverte le 25 mars 2022 et d'autoriser l'échange d'équipements numéro 112, déchiqueteuse de Mac Vermin, année de fabrication 2012, contre un montant total de recevoir de 5 173,88 $, toutes taxes comprises.
J'appuie.
Merci. 4.15, service de location de véhicules.
Monsieur le maire, je propose d'approuver le paiement de la facture numéro T295461-01 pour la location d'un camion cube chez Location Sauvageau pour la période du 17 au 24 février 2022 au montant de 1460 et 23 sous, toutes taxes comprises. D'émettre aussi une commande d'achat à l'entreprise de location Sauvageau, seul soumissionnaire ayant répondu à la demande de prix de service des travaux publics pour la location de 3 véhicules de type Crew Cab au montant global de 57 556 et 19 sous, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à ses soumissions du 8 avril 2022.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 4.16, migration d'IntelliWeb.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'émettre une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Régulvert Inc., soumissionnaire unique pour des travaux de mise aux normes des systèmes de télémétrie des bâtiments municipaux ayant des contrôles de ventilation du manufacturier Delta Control sur la plateforme IntelliWeb, au montant global de 20 752,99 sous, toutes taxes comprises. D'émettre une commande d'achat à l'entreprise Neve Réfrigération Inc., plus bas soumissionnaire pour la création d'un nouveau graphique IntelliWeb pour tous les bâtiments actuellement reliés par l'interface Delta ArcaView, au montant global de 24 820,23 sous, toutes taxes comprises.
Je seconde.
Merci. 417, service de recrutement.
Oui, je propose, Monsieur le maire, de retenir les services de l'entreprise La Tête Chercheuse pour des services de recherche de candidature et l'ensemble des étapes de recrutement, intégration et de coaching du candidat pour un montant de 20 du salaire annuel versé la première année jusqu'à concurrence de 45 000 $, toutes taxes comprises.
J'appuie.
Merci. 418, service professionnel.
Je propose de retenir les services professionnels en ingénierie civile, la firme CLA Expert Conseil Inc., pour la conception de plans et de devis dans le cadre du projet du futur parc ou espace citoyen pour un montant global de 13 797 $, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à son offre de service du 7 avril 2022, et de retenir les services professionnels en ingénierie électrique de la firme DWB Consultant pour la conception de plans et de devis dans le cadre du projet du futur parc espace citoyen, un montant global de 14 199,41 sous, toutes taxes comprises, conformément à son offre de service du 11 avril 2022.
Je seconde.
Merci. 419, fourniture et installation de gazon en plaque.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it would be to issue a purchase order to the company B&B Lawn and Snow, Inc., lowest compliant bidder, in the amount of $50,703.98, including tax, for the supply of and installation of request of soil for 2022.
I second that.
Merci. 420, service professionnel dans le cadre du processus d'équité salariale.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je propose d'autoriser le paiement d'honoraires professionnels au montant de 19 896,42, toutes taxes comprises, pour les travaux et consultations réalisés depuis l'automne 2021 par l'entreprise Global Ressources Humaines, Inc., dans le cadre de l'exercice d'équité salariale des divers groupes visés par la loi pour le compte de la Cité d'Orval pour la période 2015-2020, lequel montant s'ajoute au paiement d'honoraires professionnels de 14 006,83 toutes taxes comprises, autorisé à la séance de septembre 2021, et au montant de 9 501,25 toutes taxes comprises, autorisées à la séance de mars 2022.
Je seconde.
Merci. Service professionnel, contrôle de la qualité des matériaux, c'est le 421.
Mr. Mayor, I propose that we that we authorize an increase to the contract awarded to Enterprise Le Groupe Solrock, Sogovem Associated Expert Consultant Limited, for an amount not exceeding $19,114.59, all taxes included. And just to clarify that this is a contract that though we issue it, we get fully reimbursed by the developer of the Kathleen Lang properties.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. 422, approbation d'ordre de changement.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it would be to authorize the change of order AM 38 to AM 41 to the contract awarded to MA2D Construction, Inc. for the amount not exceeding $81,516.53, including taxes, as part of the expansion work of the Dorval Arena.
I second that.
Thank you. 423, service d'enquête pré-emploi.
Monsieur le maire, je propose d'autoriser un montant additionnel de 3 000 $, toutes taxes comprises, à Groupe Éco Canada, Inc., pour des services professionnels d'enquête pré-emploi.
Je seconde.
Merci. 424, service professionnel.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, de retenir les services professionnels de la firme Patrimonia Archéologie SENC pour effectuer le mandat d'élaboration d'une étude de potentiel archéologique pour la Maison du Jardinier au montant global de 28 826,53 $, toutes taxes comprises.
It is with much enthusiasm that I second this motion that we advance that project.
Un autre projet qui avance. Merci. Finances et administration, 5.1, approbation des virements budgétaires.
Oui, je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'autoriser les virements au poste budgétaire tel que décrit au dossier décisionnel 2022-04-17043. Il s'agit de 4 listes de virements pour l'exercice 2022, totalisant 236 232 $.
J'appuie.
Merci. 5.2, autorise... C'était M. Von Roy, je crois.
Juste fermer le micro.
5.2, autorisation de dépenses de réclamation.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, ce serait pour autoriser les paiements complets et définitifs de les réclamations décrites au rapport de la greffière pour la période du 16 mars au 12 avril 2022 et totalisant 560 $ et 16 sous non taxables.
Je seconde.
Merci. 5.3, liste de dépenses autorisées. Est-ce qu'on a des questions? Merci. 5.4, dons et subscriptions.
Monsieur le maire, je propose d'autoriser une assistance financière aux organismes qui suivent. Donc, la Fondation de l'hôpital La Chine au montant de 2 800 à imputer au poste budgétaire 02 110 00 310. Événement du député de Marquette d'un montant de 550 $ à imputer au poste budgétaire 02 110 00 310.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 5.5, FCM.
So, just a little explanation, since you mentioned earlier FCM when responding to Mr. Wilkinson. FCM is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, of which Dorval is a part. And for the last few months, Mr. Doré has served as one of the national council members, representative of a demerged city of the island of Montreal. In the past, Mayor Rouleau held a similar title. And it was, I believe, quite beneficial to the city of Dorval because it helped expose us to subsidies. And I believe in the last few months we've applied to a few subsidies from the FCM. So with that, I fully support that the City Council of the City of Dorval supports the election of Mr. Marc Doré in the capacity to be a member of the National Administration Council of FCM. And that the City of Dorval will cover the cost associated with the participation of Mr. Doré for meetings of the FCM administration upon providing appropriate justification, as it has done in the past.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci pour votre vote de confiance. Merci. Oui, merci. Le 5.6, disposition des projecteurs obsolètes.
Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'autoriser la disposition des projecteurs énumérés sur la liste jointe au dossier décisionnel 2022-04-01-15-83 de la façon suivante. Premièrement, auprès des groupes communautaires qui sont affiliés à la Cité d'Orval. Deuxièmement, auprès du Centre d'acquisition gouvernementale, le CAG, pour tout ce qui ne sera pas réclamé au 30 juin 2022 par les groupes communautaires de la Cité d'Orval. Troisièmement, par le biais du Centre de recyclage conformément aux lois sur l'environnement et la politique de disposition des biens de la Cité. D'autoriser le chef de la section ressources matérielles à prendre les mesures requises auprès du Centre d'acquisition gouvernementale et à signer tout document requis pour donner effet à la présente résolution.
Je seconde.
Merci. 5.7, c'est le dépôt de rapport financier, de rapport de l'auditeur externe au 31 décembre 2021. Bonne lecture à tout le monde. 5.8, demande de soutien financier au Fonds québécois d'initiative sociale.
I recommend, Mr. Mayor, to authorize the Community Assistance Division to submit a request for financial support under the Administrative Agreement on the Management of the Fonds québécois d'initiative sociale within the framework of the Alliance for Solidarity, Ville-MTESS 2018-2023, administered by the City of Montreal, so that the Dorval Day Camp, Équipe Entreprise, and AJOA may receive subsidies to finance their project.
I second the motion, and all three projects will be hugely beneficial to Dorval residents and visitors to Dorval.
Correct. And 3 new projects, which enhances our offerings. Very interesting. 5.9, reconduction du programme de ramonage de cheminées.
Monsieur le maire, je propose de reconduire jusqu'au 31 décembre 2023 le programme de compensation pour le ramonage de cheminées.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. 5.10, modification à la résolution autorisant la délivrance des constats d'infraction.
Oui. Je propose, Monsieur le maire, d'approuver la résolution autorisant la délivrance des constats d'infraction tels que modifiés.
J'appuie, Monsieur le maire.
Merci. Urbanisme, 6.1, approbation de divers plans d'implantation.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, ce serait pour approuver les plans et les documents associés au projet suivant, conformément au tableau ci-dessous. Projet de construction d'une habitation unifamiliale 26 Place Kathleen Lane, recommandé majoritairement. Projet de construction d'une habitation unifamiliale 170 Avenue Allard, recommandé majoritairement. Projet de construction d'une habitation unifamiliale 410 Avenue Lake, recommandé majoritairement. Projet de construction d'une habitation unifamiliale 335 Boulevard Neptune, non recommandé. Projet d'agrandissement d'une habitation unifamiliale 140 Boulevard Neptune, recommandé majoritairement. Projet d'agrandissement d'un bâtiment commercial patrimonial, qui est le 1800 Chemin Bord du Lac, Lakeshore, recommandé unanimement. Projet d'affichage au 670 Chemin Bord du Lac, Lakeshore, recommandé majoritairement. Le projet d'affichage 636 Chemin Bord du Lac, Lakeshore, recommandé majoritairement.
J'appuie.
Merci. Le 6.2 est le dépôt et procès-verbal du comité consultatif d'urbanisme. Est-ce qu'on a des questions? Merci. 6.3, approbation de la demande de dérogation mineure.
Oui, Monsieur le maire, ce serait pour accorder une demande de dérogation mineure au règlement de zonage numéro RCM 60A-2015 au 574 boulevard Pine Beach, afin d'autoriser l'augmentation de la surface maximale de 56 mètres carrés à 81,66 mètres carrés pour une construction d'un garage détaché à l'habitation unifamiliale, le tout conformément aux documents déposés au soutien de la demande.
Je seconde.
Merci. Divers programmes. 7.1, programme TEC.
Je propose que la Cité de Dorval approuve le contenu et autorise l'envoi au ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'occupation du territoire de la programmation de travaux numéro 3 jointe au dossier décisionnel 2022-04-011543 et de tous les autres documents exigés par le ministère en vue de recevoir la contribution gouvernementale qui lui a été confirmée dans une lettre du ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation. La ponctuation, là. Que la Cité de Dorval atteste par la présente résolution que la programmation des travaux numéro 3 jointe au dossier décisionnel 2022-04-011543 comporte des coûts réalisés véridiques et reflète les prévisions de dépenses des travaux admissibles jusqu'au 31 décembre 2023. Que la Cité de Dorval s'engage à, premièrement, à respecter les modalités du guide qui s'appliquent à elle. Deuxièmement, être seul responsable et à dégager le Canada et le Québec de même de leur ministre autres fonctionnaires, employés et mandataires de toute responsabilité quant aux réclamations, exigences, pertes, dommages et coûts de toutes sortes ayant comme fondement une blessure infligée à une personne, le décès de celle-ci, des dommages causés à des biens ou la perte de biens attribuables à un acte délibéré ou négligent découlant directement ou indirectement des investissements réalisés au moyen de l'aide financière obtenue dans le cadre du programme de la TEC 2019 à 2023. Troisièmement, réaliser le seuil minimal d'immobilisation en infrastructure municipale fixé à 50 $ par habitant par année pour les premières 6 499 habitants et à 75 $ par habitant par année du 6 500e au 99 999e habitant, 999e habitant suivant, et ce pour l'ensemble des 5 années du programme, et finalement d'informer le ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation de toute modification qui sera apportée à la programmation de travaux approuvés par la présente résolution.
Je seconde.
Tout ça pour dire qu'on aime bien recevoir d'argent pour des projets.
Merci. Ressources humaines, 8.1, embauche d'une assistante greffière.
Je propose, M. le maire, d'autoriser l'embauche de Mme Louisa Sadoun au poste d'assistante greffière au service des affaires publiques et du greffe à compter du 25 avril 2022 et aux conditions stipulées à sa lettre d'embauche et sujet à une période de probation de 6 mois.
J'appuie, M. le maire.
Merci. Et ça, c'est pour remplacer Mme Vinet qui prend sa retraite dans les mois qui viennent.
Micro.
Ah.
Juste en passant, c'est une résidente de Dorval, M. le maire.
Excellent. Ouais.
Et Mme Vinet, elle termine quand? OK, bientôt.
Oui.
Et là, ça va tout le monde va... Oui, elle va nous manquer.
On va lui manquer.
Je pense que je l'ai bien dit. On l'espère. Manquer, c'est bizarre. On va la manquer.
There we go.
Elle va me manquer.
All right, 8.2. 8.3. Le 8.2 est retiré. 8.3, embauche d'une coordinateur de projet.
Je propose, M. le maire, d'autoriser l'embauche en vue de sa permanence de Riyad Nour Kessoum au poste de coordonnateur de projet à compter du 2 mai 2022 aux conditions prévues à la lettre d'embauche et sujet à une période de probation de 6 mois.
Je seconde.
Merci. 8.4, autorisation de signature.
Je propose, M. le maire, d'autoriser les représentants de la cité et le maire à signer la convention collective de travail du syndicat des fonctionnaires municipaux de Montréal, SCFP, selon les termes de l'entente de principe convenue entre les parties dans le cadre des rencontres de négociation pour la période comprise du 1er janvier 2019 au 31 décembre 2027.
Je seconde.
Merci. Et je pense on est à la fin de notre réunion Affaires nouvelles. On n'a rien à ajouter.
Non, ça complète l'ordre du jour.
Et donc, on a besoin de lever la séance.
Je propose la levée de séance.
Je seconde la levée.
Merci beaucoup et je remercie tout le monde qui était présent avec nous et en vidéoconférence. Passez une belle soirée. Thank you everyone and have a great evening.